Hey guys, BuildZoid here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the core voltage behavior of the Gigabyte Z790 Aorus Master X motherboard with a 14900K, because now the BIOS that's currently on there is some ancient thing because the board's just been sitting on my desk for ages and ages and ages, and I haven't bothered to update it, as you do, because I've not been using the board. So we're on, yeah, this is BIOS version F5. So this is one of the, like, unsafe BIOSes. And there's a newer BIOS on the Gigabyte website, which I'm not sure is necessarily much safer because I don't think it's the latest update. But yeah, there's F7E, which introduces Intel default settings, right? So this isn't one of those like Intel baseline profiles because those were really really bad. But this is like Intel default settings. So we're gonna basically go take a look at what this actually does. I am not sure if this is the same thing that Asus has on their website, because Asus has this, like, for the Dark Hero, they have 1402 here, which came out after the Gigabyte BIOS update. I am, like, knowing Gigabyte, chances are they're probably not ahead of Asus when it comes to updating their BIOSes. So, yeah, I am not sure what's up with that. I don't really feel like, here's the issue, is I attached, like, I hooked up the oscilloscope to this motherboard, and then I checked what BIOSes are available. Evidently, I did I screwed up on the order of operations. I should have checked what BIOSes are available, and then connected the oscilloscope to the appropriate motherboard, but here we are. So... Anyway, I mean, Intel did also say that there will be another patch sometime in mid-August, so, you know, I guess the Asus BIOS isn't even final because it's not August yet, so, yeah, anyway, but, so I'm kind of interested to see what this does compared to the BIOS that's currently on the board, which is F5, which is unstable and definitely, like, you know, it's not a very safe BIOS, let's just put, or... It, like, yeah, I guess at this point you would say it's not a safe BIOS. So, anyway, let's switch back over to the BIOS view and the oscilloscope. Also, if you're wondering how the oscilloscope is connected, it's just some coax soldered to a multi-layer ceramic capacitor on the back of the CPU socket. Yeah, so the issue with this is it's not super accurate for getting voltage measurements doing things this way. For a variety of reasons, but it should be close enough. Like, if there's anything really egregious, we should be able to see that. And, like, if there's a big difference between the two BIOS versions, we should be able to see that as well. And the main reason I wanted to hook up the oscilloscope is that, like, there are certain things that you just can't see from, like, say, hardware info, because they might happen too quickly. So anyway... let's take a quick poke around the BIOS first and see what kind of settings we're running. And I'm actually, yeah. So let's get into that. So yeah, this is just defaults, right? Like you saw at the start of the video. I guess Gigabyte has a different way of reading the VID table, because on Asus boards, this CPU reported as being 1.498 volts. Oh, wait, that's for 5.6. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with that. Anyway. Yeah, so, where was I going with this? Right, so everything's just, like, you know, cleared, like, this is, like, default settings after a clear CMOS. We're gonna check the VRM settings, of course. So, no, not that. But the internal settings, and of course we have the AC load line of 0.4, DC load line of 0.9, so if I try to run Cinebench 15 on this, I imagine it will crash, but, you know, that's expected, so we're going to just put that back to auto. And then the power limits, actually I don't think we get to see the power limits in the BIOS. Yeah, I don't think we can actually check them. Yeah, we can't, because it just reads auto. So we don't know, but we'll just run whatever the auto... Like, we can check it with hardware info. So that's no big deal. So yeah, this is basically just bone stock or yeah, like bone stock gigabyte settings, right? Whatever that may be. And then we're going to update to the F7 eBIOS and see if that like really does anything to the voltage behavior. So, and the board double boots just because the OS I have is in like legacy mode. So that's why it does that. That isn't some like that's just a thing. And it's funny like Gigabyte boards do this. Like other manufacturers' boards, like I can use this OS and they won't double post like this, but Gigabyte boards do this like double post thing where they boot up once, realize that they can't start the OS, and then they like restart again and then the OS starts. So, yeah. So we're already seeing some quite impressive voltages from the CPU, and we haven't even gotten into Windows. You can see the power management in action, right? Like, do I have my little pointer thingy? Oh no, I don't have my little pointer thingy. So we're gonna switch over to this. Hey, there's my pointer thingy. Yay, okay. So what I mean by the power management is like you can see how like we have the voltage going all the way down here, so that's like idle. Right, and you'll also notice how like the CPU, like this, we're on a timescale of like 5 milliseconds per division. You can see how the CPU is actually changing like power states on like a millisecond scale. Actually, it's probably sub-millisecond if we zoom in. Yeah, so we have some very, very like fast. Actually, let me try trigger on one of these. No, single. There we go. Yeah, so literally like we don't even get that voltage over there for more than like that's like 50 microseconds or something. That's insane. So that's very, very fast power management. So anyway, but yeah, and the top of that, if you're wondering, is around 1.43 volts. So yeah, not exactly super high or anything. Right, but that we're not really doing anything right now, so that's not too surprising. And actually, I'm going to zoom us back out to like 10 milliseconds, to like the, yeah, 5 milliseconds per division. And this is in 4K, so I can't see what's going on. This is great. Yep, that's 4K, so I absolutely cannot see anything. Also, like, this is what I get for using an NVIDIA GPU. This is one thing that just frustrates me to know. Like, with AMD GPUs, for whatever reason, Windows is perfectly happy to just give you resolution settings even going into the capture card, and with the NVIDIA cards, you don't get, like, unless you reinstall the driver, like... Oh, well. Anyway, so let's open up hardware info. And I guess we're going to do the, like, will it crash Cinebench 15 test. Oh no, hardware info's all messed up because of the scaling. I mean, I don't really actually... I mean, I still can't see anything. This is so... So... This is 15. Yeah, so first let's check if it'll actually just crash in 15, which it probably will. Oh yeah, it just froze. Instantly. Okay, I wonder what kind of voltage we were getting before it just up and died. Yeah, because it did just insta-crash. So it's good to see that the unstable, like that's still... Like, that's not the... Well, I mean... The thing is, these chips seem to be, like, it seems to be, like, these chips, like, after, you know, talking with that person who was running those Minecraft servers, I am less confident that this CPU hasn't degraded because I have run some Y-Cruncher on it, and I've run a lot of memory stress tests on it, right? And I would think, like, the memory stress tests are not a high power consumption load, but I would think they are kind of similar to, in, like, terms of how much stress they put on, say, the L3 cache. They're probably similar to something like a Minecraft server. So at this point, I'm less confident saying that, oh, the CPU is definitely not degraded because it only has, like, I don't know, 100 hours of runtime. I don't think it even has 100 hours of runtime. Because yeah, like these chips do seem to degrade very, very quickly, but man, like I can see as little as you guys can. Like I don't have I don't have a more zoomed in view of this right now, which is kind of annoying. Um okay, actually I'm going to zoom us way out on the scope because I imagine it's going to be really hard to see when the benchmark actually runs. So I caught it, I think. Yeah, because it just froze up again. Yeah, so that just died. So when it's actually running, that's this part right here. Now, obviously, we have these like transient spikes going upwards. And then here it crashed, I think. Like right around there is when it just crashed. And so that voltage is... Oh, I don't have a trigger in this mode. Where are my cursors? There we go. Yeah, but what is that at? I don't remember how to use the cursors. Yeah, but like... Hmm? Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so AY right now, that's 1.3-ish volts. So you can see AY 1.315. So I have it a little bit below, and that's on the back of the CPU socket. So the actual CPU is probably getting like 1.25 in this situation. So this isn't really getting like some extreme voltage, which is why it's crashing, by the way. Like the whole like Gigabyte setting the AC load line to 0.4 basically means that the CPU right now isn't getting enough voltage to run Cinebench all-core. Right? So, like, in this all-core kind of scenario, we actually don't, like, the voltage is too low to be stable, which is just really fun. But in a single-core load scenario, which is, say, we're going to use Cinebench 20 for that, which I can run Cinebench 20, like, that won't crash. It's kind of funny how R15 is, like, worse than 20. I think it might be because 20 uses AVX and 15 doesn't. Wait. Is it 15 that doesn't? No, I think it's a lot. I can't remember. Doesn't really matter. Like, they're just, like, slightly different workloads. But anyway, so if we run R20, I think this is set to single core right now. And yep, yeah, it's set to single core. So when it runs single core, you can see that the average voltage is basically 1.5 volts. Let's try zoom in on that a bit. Oh, I am so glad I'm not trying to do this on my old oscilloscope. On my old oscilloscope, scrolling the waveform up and down took so long. Like, if I switched from, like, 200 millivolts per division to 100 millivolts per division, it took forever. But, yeah, so, like, the average voltage, oh, I'm grabbing the wrong mouse here. So the average voltage, like, that's not, I mean, it's a little bit above 1.5. Where are the measurements all messed up? Oh. Oh, the scaling broke them. Okay. Yeah, so we're a little bit above 1.5 for the average voltage. Now, again, we're on the back of the CPU socket, so there's like some more voltage drop to the actual like the silicon isn't getting as much voltage as what we're seeing on the oscilloscope. And we do actually have a dye sense voltage reading from this motherboard, which is this sensor right here, which, yeah, so that's reading also about 1.5. So the scope's actually probably reading a bit low due to how it's like connected to the motherboard, which, yeah. Because the like, I am just using coax, right? And there's a 50 ohm termination at the scope, so it kind of like drags down the voltage by the time it gets to the oscilloscope. But yeah, so this like measurement setup is kind of far from perfect, but at least we can see that, why are we getting Vmax of like 1.7? I mean 1.57, like that's kind of, like we are getting some transient spikes in there, but I'm not sure why they're so damn high. I'm gonna just put the trigger at that level. Oh, well that was quick. I mean, that's 1.55 right there. That just looks like a that doesn't look like a... That doesn't really look like a power state thing to I'm not sure. That actually might be a vid request from the CPU. But also there's that really fun test you can do where if you move the mouse around while the test is running... Okay, well, it's not doing it right now. So that's interesting, because on some BIOSes, if you move the mouse around while you're running a single-threaded workload, the voltage just goes through the roof. But yeah, this one doesn't. This isn't doing that. Like, as soon as I touch the mouse, it, like, gives up on trying to run 6 gigahertz, it looks like. Maybe if I... Yeah, no. No. So we do have, like, so we have, like, a... Like, there does seem to maybe be a vid request that's going over 1.5. Actually, I wonder what hardware info is reading for the vid readout. I might have disabled... Wait. Oh, no, I just buried the vids. Okay. There. Oh, yeah, we have a vid request all the way up to 1.559 in hardware info, so that explains why we're seeing, like, 1.57 on the scope. That's probably that. But that vid request isn't held for very long. Yeah, so single-threaded cinebench is... Now, the funny thing is... funny thing, like... So in this scenario where we're seeing this insane voltage, because it's just one thread, the temperatures are actually great. Right? Like, if I reset the temperatures right now, like, you'll notice that... Like, 73... Right? Like, it's really not pulling some... Like, the temperatures aren't getting super high. We are technically going above the TVB limit, because TVB should only kick in below 70 degrees Celsius, and it kind of looks like it's working correctly. Like, we're not holding 6 gigahertz right now, though, then again, like, I don't have a... Like, yeah, so, like, the temperatures are low enough for TVB to be working. So... Yeah, that doesn't look like we're seeing anything incorrect right now in terms of behavior. So let's try all-core, just to see what that looks like. And that's just going to thermal throttle because the power limits on this BIOS are 280 watts long-term, and short-term it's 4,000 watts, right? So this is just going to smash into the power limit. Well, actually... It's gonna, temporarily, it's gonna pull like 360 watts, and then it's gonna overheat, and then it's gonna smash into the PL1. So, because I do only have a 240 millimeter AIO on there. The fan and the pump, the fans and the pump are maxed out, but it's just a 240, so it's not gonna last very long in such a heavy workload. But yeah, let's take a look at the voltage when we run all core. Wait, I just started single. Oh no, that is all core. And so I'm just gonna... So this is like the initial voltage, because it will come down, right? Like, if we watch VRV out here, where is it? Also, there's the voltage drop through the CPU socket. Like, you can see it dropped all the way down to like 1.2 at some point. Also, the temperatures hit like 100 degrees on a few cores. No. Yeah, so it hit 100 degrees on a couple cores. Not all of them, surprising. Like, you'd think with a 240, it would have actually just completely overheated. And max power draw was, yeah, 360 watts. So absolutely insane. At least for a little bit. But yeah, so in the start of that workload there, like, we're running what, like 1.36? And this is at very high current draw, so the CPU voltage is probably at like 1.3, just because of the voltage drop through the CPU socket. Right. So, and the transients in this situation, like, they're not super high. They're up to like 1.45 volts, right? Like, they're topping out like there. Actually, I guess I could just move the waveform down and then... Yeah, they're maxing... It's not even 1.45. It's like 1.4... 4-ish for the transients there. Right, and like those upward spikes happen because the CPU actually isn't pulling a lot of current for a brief moment of time. The power draw like drops. So this really, like, from a degradation perspective, like this isn't like this shouldn't normally be concerning. Okay? Like every CPU does this. 12th gen Intel does this, 11th gen Intel does this, 10th gen Intel does this, 9th gen Intel, you get the idea. And Ryzen CPUs do this. Actually, Ryzen CPUs are generally worse if you're like the stock boost, like if you're on the default power delivery behavior for an AMD CPU, they actually generally have worse transients because AMD CPUs typically have very shallow load lines, as specified by AMD. So you normally actually get a bunch of overshoot and a bunch of undershoot. You don't just get an upward spike, you also get a downward spike. And that's just like how AMD likes their, like, because AMD's boost algorithm basically just clock stretches the CPU to maintain stability whenever the voltage is a bit too low. So AMD runs a very like flat load line because of that. Intel doesn't. Even though Intel now should have the capability to like do that clock stretching behavior. At least CEP seems to be capable of doing that, but Intel doesn't use it the same way that like AMD and Nvidia do. Yeah, so like this really doesn't, you know, like this isn't anything like this isn't anything I haven't seen before. This shouldn't be causing a CPU to degrade unless the voltage levels are entirely too high to begin with. Because those spikes aren't going to go away. Like, yeah, they'll be smaller if your voltage is 1.2 volts because the current draw is going to be smaller. But, like, I don't think you'd get, like you couldn't, like, there's no way you could get those spikes to disappear, is what I'm trying to say. Like, you can't just erase those out of existence. That doesn't work. That's not an option. So anyway, so yeah, in single core we see some pretty high voltages. In multi-core we see some less ridiculous voltages. All right, we'll just, like, it's cooled down now, so we'll just run it again. And yeah, VRV out we're seeing about 1.3, and on the oscilloscope we're seeing about 1.37, 1.38. Which lines up with my expectations, because generally I would expect the CPU socket on LGA, like the LGA 1700 socket, should be dropping about 70 millivolts when running Cinebench all-core. And then also, like, eventually the CPU does, I don't know if you noticed this, but it does hit that power limit after some time, so that's why we get that really big voltage drop, right? So if we run it again, so we start out at, like, high voltage at, like, 1.3, and then our power limit kicks in. There, so now the power limit kicked in, we're at 280 watts, and the voltage dropped to, like, 1.2 volts. So, yeah. Anyway, so that's how this old, dangerous BIOS behaves. Right? And that dangerous was in quotation marks. I don't have the face cam, so you can see me do them right now. But, yeah. Yeah, so this is like one of the supposedly dangerous BIOSes that is going to degrade your CPU. So now we're going to update to F7E with the Intel default settings and see what that does. Because I'll be very surprised if it's significantly different. Though at the bare minimum, I expect it'll fix the Cinebench 15 instability. And then I guess, you know what? I'm also gonna, like... Because I never did this with, like, I have a video where I have, like, a theoretical fix to try... Well, to fix a theoretical fix for the instability. And I also make some suggestions for, like, reducing the degradation in that video. So we're going to see how my, like, fix behaves in terms of voltage behavior. So anyway, let's do a BIOS update. Hopefully this doesn't take forever, because we all know that I don't edit video. Okay, it is going to take forever, isn't it? I have to restart the system. That's not too bad. Imagine if you degraded your CPU so much that while trying to do the BIOS update, it crashed. Oh, that would just be the worst. I don't really think that's too much of a concern here, though. We're like, not... I think that... Honestly, Turbo Boost might actually be disabled right now. Because we are just sitting at like 1 volt. So we might just be running base clock, which is like 3 something gigahertz, isn't it, for these? Well, I got my hopes up about the BIOS update not taking forever. That wasn't too bad. So yeah, we'll just go with the... I mean... Nah, I think the BIOS update should just automatically clear the settings. I shouldn't need to like clear the CMOS after updating the BIOS. Though I might do that just in case. Yeah, you know what? I'll actually do that. I wonder what the Intel default settings are gonna look like. Why is it taking so long to boot up? So now we're on Intel default settings, extreme performance. Okay, well we'll just like it defaulted to extreme. I wanna see what the out of box experience is. Oh, so now we're on 9090. So that should be interesting. Auto is set to disabled. Aren't they supposed to have that turned on now? Please kindly be noted that eCore performance may be affected if CEP is set to enable. Recommend to tune AC/DC load line value accordingly. I am relatively certain that if you're on the Intel default setting, CEP is supposed to be turned on. So you know what? Let's just see what this does. Like, I'm just like not gonna change anything. I'm gonna reset the stats. This almost seems like it might be worse. Oh boy, what are they doing at Intel? Not measuring things, apparently. Yeah, this doesn't really seem like it did anything to the voltages. But at the bare minimum, I think Cinebench 15 won't crash anymore, right? Because previously it would lock up instantly, right? So yeah, it doesn't crash anymore. Yay! Well, so they fixed that. I imagine the performance in Cinebench 20 is now worse, though. Which, honestly, like, well, yeah, because they fixed, like, you know, like, the whole reason it was unstable before is because it was on the edge, in terms of settings. So, I don't know why I stretched out the minimums. Whatever. Temperatures should be reasonable now. Yeah, because we're going to be smashing straight into the, like, stock Intel 253 watt power limit, and a 240 AIO can actually deal with that quite nicely. And, yeah, that does kind of look worse, I think. Like, the voltage bouncing around like that, because I think that's the E-cores and the P-cores fighting over who gets the core voltage power rail. And we, of course, lost a bunch of performance, but yeah, that's the price of stability, I guess. It's a real shame that Intel wasn't too concerned about stability when they first launched these CPUs. So let's see what single core does. Oh, so we did manage to see. I was wondering if this was like a fluke during startup or like, nope, we actually have a maximum of 1.59 now. Ooh boy. And single core is actually, like, the average is lower actually compared to that first BIOS. Like, yeah, the maximums are still, you know, up there, but the average voltage is lower. That is interesting, because I was not expecting that. I thought, like, the average voltage would be basically the same, or even potentially higher because of the higher AC load line. Yeah, no, but even the, like, even our package power draw right now is lower, right, for single core. Not by much, but it is a bit lower, so we are definitely pulling less, like the voltage is lower for single core. Yeah, we're not even, like, I mean, it maxed out at, like, 1.4, well, that might be from, like, earlier, if I reset the sensors. Yeah, like, it's now not going over 1.45, so that is interesting, because that's, like, a pretty significant behavior change to the single core boost. Right, because previously the single core boost was happily going right over 1.5 volts. Well, okay, not right over, but barely above 1.5 volts. And now we have more AC load line, and I mean, we aren't seeing 6 gigahertz as much, I think. Oh, there it is. There it popped up for a little bit. Yeah, temperatures look fine, which is what you'd expect. I mean, I guess I could manually pin the process to the boost core. Right, which is these two, so that's cores 6 and 7. I'm just gonna set affinity 6. Actually, wait, can I do that for 2 at once? Okay, well, let's just try it on 7 then. Because I'm wondering if we pin it to 7, is it just going to, like, sit at 1.45? No. Huh. Yeah, we don't get 5.7. Oh, wait, there's a 6 gigahertz. Yeah, so every time it blips up to 6 gigahertz, you can see that it goes over 1.4 volts. So yeah, they actually, like, turned down the boost voltage. So that's cool. And what I find interesting about that is, like, it's not immediately obvious from the actual, like, BIOS settings that we can see, right? Like, the power limits are like, okay, we went from 280 to 253, but that doesn't affect the single core boost, right? Like, it doesn't matter for single core. Or at least it shouldn't. The AC load line is higher now, which would normally, for within a given BIOS version, if you raise the AC load line, you usually end up with more voltage, not less. So it's like, just looking at those two things, it's like, oh, well, like, if anything, I was kind of expecting the single core voltage to get worse, but it's actually, like, it's better. Like, the maximum somehow ended up, like, we ended up with a maximum readout of, like, 1.59 at some point. So I think in low loads, like, very light load seems to be doing something weird. But when we actually have one core running a workload, that's down on voltage. That's running less voltage than it used to. So that's interesting. Now, the thing I was wondering about, if I manually enable CEP, what's going to happen? I mean, I don't expect that to change the voltages. I'm more wondering, like, are we going to lose a bunch of performance by turning that on? Because if the load line settings aren't right, then CEP is going to get very upset. Oh no, I need to ditch the affinity mask. Wait, how? Oh, I just like that, yeah. I mean, right now we're just checking for performance, but this looks like... Yeah, this looks like it's going to score correctly, so I don't think the voltages are too low or anything. Yeah, like, that's basically the same score as last time. Also, I was, like, messing around with hardware info and stuff, so the process wasn't getting all of the attention. Also, I'm relatively certain that the reason the waveform on the scope isn't a nice flat line is because the E-cores and P-cores are fighting each other for the power delivery. What a stupid architecture design. Because basically the E-cores, in order to achieve, like, the E-cores generally need more voltage for, like for 4.2 gigahertz on the E-cores, you need way more voltage than, say, I think right now we're running like 5 gigahertz on the P-cores, right? So the P-cores have like a very low voltage request, And the E-cores have a very high, like a relatively very high voltage request. And so whenever the CPU like isn't thermal throttling, it like goes with the E-core request instead of the P-core request. Because yeah, occasionally you'll see one of the E-cores bump up to like 4.2 or something. And I think that's what's creating all the steps in the core voltage readout. Like when one of the E-cores wants to go to 4.2, it needs to drag the voltage up to do that. So it drags up the voltage for the entire CPU, and then the CPU starts like pulls too much power, so it drops the voltage back down. So you get that step behavior. Because basically, like it'll be something like, oh, the CPU detects, oh, I'm not pulling too much power, raise the voltage, and then it's like, oh no, I'm pulling too much power, lower the voltage. And it just keeps doing that the entire time, which ultimately, if it's properly tuned, that isn't necessarily a problem. It's just like kind of stupid to see. Especially since like I think the P cores would probably be able to boost higher if the E cores weren't getting in the way. Like if the E cores were just hard locked at like 4 gigahertz, all of the you could probably boost the P cores more. Oh, actually, the E cores tried to go all the way up to 4.4. Yeah, but 4.4 requires so much voltage that that's just not happening. So yeah, so this BIOS version is actually a lot like. I mean, I still don't know where that freaking like where this is coming from. Right? Like somehow we're going all the way up to 1.59. And that's not in an actual workload. Wonder if we just run like Karhu on like one thread. No, that's also really tame. Yeah, that doesn't really have any like undesirable behavior in my opinion. So does it just happen if I'm like messing around on the desktop or something? Let's open a folder, dragging it back a bit. Nah, nothing. I don't know, close that. Open the display settings, just do random stuff and see what happens, is what I'm thinking. I don't know. Let's try Open 3D Mark. Actually, that should throw up an error because I don't have the NVIDIA drive, like the NVIDIA drivers aren't up right now, but might not even launch at all. Okay, there we go. Huh. So that did manage to get it up to like 1.57. Wait, the NVIDIA drivers... What? How is this... But I don't have the NVIDIA control panel. How is it not giving me a missing GPU error? Unless it wants to run on the IG... I don't have the iGPU drivers, so they can't do that. We're not even plugged into the iGPU. Anyway, so this behavior seems a lot better than the old BIOS. Right, like this definitely seems a lot like this, yeah, so like this F7E BIOS is definitely nowhere near as bad as F5 was. Now I'm still, so now we're gonna quickly test like my experimental fix idea. So I'm gonna go to extreme, and then VR control, enable. And I think the power monitoring might be broken after this. I'm just gonna clear the stats again. Because, like, basically what I just punched in is, like, more similar to how, say, NVIDIA or AMD handle their power delivery. So, like, now we're going to start seeing some pretty serious undershoot. But it might bring the average voltage down? I'm not sure. Like, the idea is that hopefully it brings down the average voltage. And normally the reason you wouldn't want undershoot is because it's like, oh, it's going to cause massive instability. But with with IACEP turned on, I'm not sure that that's actually like a problem. So we'll see, I guess. Well, so far I haven't had the voltage jump all the way up to 1.59, so I guess that's something. That's what I get for having the window open. So is this is all core, right? Yeah, this is all core, I think. Oh, we're not. Well, no, you can see a little bit of undershoot, a little bit. I mean, the voltage is still bouncing around like crazy, but yeah, there's occasional. But it's not really as bad as I thought it would be. I mean, we aren't really stressing the power delivery that much because we're on a 250 something power limit. The actual score went up. We have CEP turned on, by the way, so like this is not. I mean, I don't have hardware info open, I guess. That's probably why the score's higher now. Oh, we got up to 1.55 on the scope at this point. I don't think the single-threaded test is going to change. Yeah, no, that's about the same. It might actually be slightly worse. I might have, like, set the AC load line a bit high. Yeah, because we're seeing, like, 1.45, 1.46 occasionally. So yeah, that's really about the same as the like, not changing anything setup. I mean, we can just check like that. Well, I don't think, like, we have CEP turned on. I don't think there's any way anything can crash right now. Wait, I do have hardware info open. Yeah, I just can't see it because because of the resolution of the capture card. Yeah, so 15 still runs. So yeah, and the max vid request was 1.468 in this setup so far. I'll try that open 3D mark again. Oh, actually, the other thing I wanted to do is check which, wait, no, not the installer. Check what microcode version this BIOS is on. What? Yes. Because I already installed that earlier. I mean, we still haven't managed to get the scope to read out anything. Okay, fine, I'll just install it again, because, like, the utility disappeared. I mean, I guess hardware info could also probably read out the microcode version, but we'll just do it this way. Oh yeah, so this is on the newest, like the newest microcode, as far as I know. Huh, so apparently Gigabyte isn't behind. They're just worse at labeling stuff than Asus is, right? If we go back to the Gigabyte website, because we're on F7E now, and updated microcode OX125. So yeah, it looks like Intel actually went and like 125 lowers the like low load vid requests. And I've labeled oscilloscope. There we go. So yeah, so Gigabyte has that new microcode. And it does lower the like low load voltages. I'm not sure if I'd say it lowers them enough, but then again, F5 was like really. It's like they lowered it by 50 millivolts. I don't know if I like. I don't think 50 millivolts is enough of a difference. Because, like, we have, like, the absolute worst i7 I've ever heard of has, like, a max vid of, like, 1.43, which is still less than what this i9 is requesting, right? And there are reports of, like, degraded i7s. They're far less common than i9s, and I think the reason why the i7s degrade so much less than the i9s is because you need to have a really potato-grade i7 to get the kind of vid requests that an i9 has. But like, you know, so if you can get i7s which request, okay, so on the old, like this CPU on an Asus board reports a max vid of 1.498, and the i7s on a like the vid value that I know of for i7s is also off of an Asus board, right? So this thing on an Asus board is a 1.498, and here on this latest microcode, it runs at like 1.45. On the old microcode, it ran at like 1.5. So, like, both of these voltages are still way higher than what I think, like, an old i7 would have been, like, like an i7, like a 1.43 volt i7 on the old microcode would have probably ran at like 1.48. I don't, that doesn't, you know, that just doesn't seem like enough of a voltage reduction in my opinion. Oh, right. The other thing that I wanted to change is, the... Wait. Yeah, the turbo ratios. Because I wanted to remove the 60s. And that should keep the CPU at like 1.35 or less the whole time. And then the E-cores, you know what? I am actually going to drop the E-cores to like 40. Oops. Like that is quite, like for multi-threaded, that's going to be kind of a... Well, I'm not sure it's going to be that much of a penalty. I guess we'll see. Because, like, they weren't boosting very hard anyway. Right? Because they were like, the whole CPU was bouncing off the power limit the entire time. And now I'm thinking, like, well, at least the E-cores won't be trying to raise the voltage the whole, like, at every opportunity. So we might get a little bit more P-core boost out of that. The other thing I'm wondering is, like, this patch from Intel, I think, is going to actually affect some CPUs worse than others in terms of, like, the performance impact. Like, I think if you have a CPU with a good, like, good vid to begin with, it'll hurt less than if you have a potato. Because the potatoes will have to really, like, apply the brakes, especially once the power limit kicks in. Right, because you have like the Silicon Lottery also, like, you'll have chips that, like, for the same power draw, like, some of them will run at like 5.2, whereas others will run at 5. So if you had a BIOS that had no power limit, actually, you'd ultimately just end up thermal limited anyway. So your potato CPU was going to be slower than a really good CPU because, like, previously your potato would be slower than the amazing CPU because your potato would hit the thermal limit at a lower frequency than the amazing CPU does. On the 253 watt power limit, your potato CPU is going to hit the hit the power limit at a lower frequency than a really good CPU does. So either way, your potato is still just as much of a potato. Um, oh, I forgot to clear the stats. So now I think we should never see a voltage higher than 1.5 with this setup right now. Right now we're in single core. Yep, single core. And if we run single core now, it just sits at 1.35 with some weird spikes upwards at some point. But yeah, like, it's not like the maximum voltage at this point is we're at like below 1.5 max, and the average is staying around 1.35. Now in this scenario though, with more threads loaded, it might be quite different. Right? Because previously, when you have the 6 gigahertz boost enabled, your highest voltage is whenever one core tries to go to 6 gigahertz. Like, you're gonna, like, or when one of the two boost cores is gonna try to go to 6, that's when you're gonna see the highest voltages. But now, all of the cores are limited to the same frequency, so kind of wondering if, like, yeah, that's what I thought. Because the more, though, this probably isn't reflective of the actual silicon level voltage right now. We check VRV out. Oh no, they're actually pretty close together. Now we're like 1.37 on the die sense and 1.38 on the back of the board. Not accounting for any issues with the probing setup that I have here. Okay, so let's try. I want to try like 8 threads to get all the P cores up. Oh, that's really high. Yeah, that is really high. Oh, because it's trying to get 5.7 across all of the cores at once. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not a fan of that, though. Yeah, we're putting 220 watts through just the P cores. And mind you, we're not even we're not even hitting the hyper threads, right? This is just like, oh, okay, yeah. So that's thirsty. Oh, and we didn't try all core for that. Like, for the performance comparison. So honestly, okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clear the CMOS and I want to see what the like defaults from Intel do for 8-thread load. Yeah, we get, well, no, we still have a lot of staircasing. Hey, we didn't even lose any performance after I dropped the E-core clocks. Imagine that. Yeah, because when the CPU is bouncing off the power limit, the E-core boost is like not really relevant to the performance anymore. So that's why, like, you know, dropping them from 4.4 to 4 gigahertz max didn't, like, tank the, like, it didn't shave off a bunch of performance. Okay, so I'm going to clear the CMOS now, and, we'll see, how the Intel defaults handle 8-thread load. Because, like, 1.45 volts getting shoved into one P-core, I mean, I'm not a fan. Like, I still kind of suspect that it's the ring falling apart. Oh, and I didn't test what the old F5 BIOS does if you load 8 P-cores at once. But I think shoving 1.45 volts into all of the E-cores, all of the P-cores at the same time, that I don't think is a good idea. Like, just generally. I mean, it's not actually going to be 1.45 because there's, like, power, like, voltage drop across the CPU socket. And once you load up 8 of the P cores to 220 watts, that voltage drop is going to be quite substantial. But you're still going to be like north of 1.35 volts. Which, okay, that might be fine. That might be fine. Anyway, I'm wondering what that looks like right now. Because, like, yeah, the issue with the scope is, like, the more power the CPU is pulling, the less accurate the oscilloscope measurement gets. Like, the more, like, the higher, like, the voltage at the scope is going to be more higher than the voltage at the silicon. So at, like, idle, the oscilloscope is going to measure pretty much the same as the motherboard, and at full load, it's going to be off by, like, 70 plus millivolts. But we don't even have to be at full load, right? Like, because 8 P cores can pull, like, 200 watts all on their own. So we're going to run 8-thread. Yeah, that runs similar voltages. So let's take a look at that VRV out sensor. It is 1.4. Yeah, oh, yeah, no, I am not a fan of that. Yeah, it's at like 80 degrees. I don't know that I would want to put 1.4 volts into the CPU at 80 degrees. Like, we're not trying to boost to, like, we're actually losing boost clocks here a bit. Are we hitting the power limit? No, we shouldn't be. It don't maxed out at like 253. Also, I'm just wondering, like, in stock Intel profile versus my, like, dumped E-core speed. Yeah, it's about the same. Yeah, so the 8, like, so when you load all 8 of the P cores, like, the voltage still gets quite high. I wonder what it was doing on F5 then. It's a shame that I only, like, that I only had the idea to check that right now. Because I should have checked that at the start of the video. So I'm wondering if, like... Oh, I guess I could have just taken a look at the vid readouts and hardware info. But the thing is, like, the ring typically requires kind of a lot of voltage to maintain stability. So I'm kind of wondering if, like, maybe lowering just the ring ratio wouldn't get the... Like, I wonder if that'll significantly change the voltage behavior. Nope, that's the wrong button. That's the right one. Yeah, so, like, max ring ratio, I think by default it goes to, like, 48 or 50. We'll try 45, see what happens. Because when you load all 8 of the P cores, I think it's trying to pull the ring all the way up to... I mean, I could have literally just checked in hardware info, but, like, we can also just test, right? That doesn't really matter. Like, the thing ultimately what I'm wondering is, like, if I lower the max ring ratio, are we going to get less voltage? And if that's because previously the ring was trying to go to 5 gigahertz, or for some other reason, ultimately I just care about the result being less voltage, right? Because if lowering the ring ratio to 45 doesn't do anything, then you wouldn't do that anyway. Wait, what? How did we get a max of 1.6? Did I break something? I have a vid request of 1.5. Yeah, that didn't do anything. We're seeing some crazy high max voltages, though. After that clear CMOS. But I'm pretty sure after a clear CMOS, we should be back to Intel defaults, right? Like Gigabyte wouldn't just, like, default, like, clear CMOS shouldn't just go to the Gigabyte stupid mode settings. Yeah, no, we still have the 253 watt power limits. Yeah, I am not... Okay, I'm gonna... I'm gonna clear CMOS, and I'm also gonna reset the stats, and then we'll just do, like, a completely fresh run. Okay, so far the behavior seems reasonable. I don't know, let's try open 3D mark again. Kind of tempted to like reset the stats and see what like the average voltage ends up being after like just, you know, doing desktop things for a bit, like opening folders and moving the mouse around. Kind of looks like touching absolutely anything in the BIOS at this point is just a bad idea. Because yeah, like now we haven't seen that 1.6 volt thing again. But I don't know, like maybe there was like some very specific scenario that triggers that, or if it's just a fluke. Like, or like if it's related to me changing the ring ratio, or if it's just like, oh, there's like a very specific thing sequence of things that have to happen in order for that to like the voltage to get that high. Um, yeah, honestly, kind of looks like touching anything in the BIOS is probably like anything related to CPU frequency. Like might not like the microcode might not deal with that well if like things are getting changed. Huh, apparently just opening Cinebench R20 like is not something the CPU is a big fan of. I don't feel like these are closing properly. They start up too fast. I was kind of hoping if I hit escape that it would like trigger a big load release transient, but yeah, that doesn't seem to be quite working the way I was hoping it would. Well, 1.57 I think is probably close. Well, I know that's like 40 millivolts. That's kind of a lot. Okay, yeah. So it looks like if you use the newest Intel microcode, it does behave better than the older versions. We're still at like 1.4. Man, I don't know that I'd want to put 1.4 volts through the P cores at 80 degrees Celsius. Actually, some of them are hitting 90s now that the water temperature's gone up. And like that, the voltage is not getting better. I wonder, because like the thing is, if we go back to that Intel post, yeah, Intel is delivering a microcode patch which addresses the root cause of exposure to elevated voltages. We are continuing validation to ensure that the scenarios of instability reported to Intel regarding its 13th gen, 14th gen desktop processors are addressed. Intel is currently targeting mid-August for patch release to partners following full validation. So I'm wondering if like they're gonna even like lower the voltages even more in another patch. Because I don't like this. Like evidently, this newest like this OX 125 microcode, it runs less voltage than whatever microcode was on BIOS version F5, right? Because the BIOS we were running here first was F5, which is from like December of 2023. And F7E is like the latest BIOS, and that does use the OX 125 microcode, which is the same microcode that you get on like the latest Asus BIOS. And that like it does run less voltage. I'm not sure if it runs like single core where you're seeing like a 50 millivolt reduction. But we still have that. Like I'm. It's a shame. Like I mean, I could like flash the F5 BIOS again, but I don't really feel like doing that. This video is long enough as is. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure that I'm a fan of 1.4 volts with the CPU pulling 200 watts. Um, like I'm wondering because like if I was like manually overclocking one of these CPUs, um, the approach I would probably take is the following. So I'm kind of wondering like how that compares to. I mean, I don't want to cheat this by like intentionally punching in settings that I know for sure are going to be better than whatever Intel uses. I'm going to max that. I mean, these are already maxed out, so um yeah, we're on low. Like 55. We might be able to run more than that, but like as a starting point, and then like 48, 48. Um, because I'm thinking if you're on low LLC and you set 1.45 idle, you're still gonna end up with less voltage with 8P cores loaded than what Intel was running. Though, admittedly, it's not gonna run 5.7 gigahertz anymore, so. Also, I forgot to disable CEP, so we might have a problem. Oh wait, no, just Okay, so this is 8 threads. Yeah, we end up with lower power draw, way less voltage. Yeah, because that's what I figured. Like, there's a lot of E-droop. And of course, it's slower. I wonder if this will run all 32 threads, though. We are thermal throttling, aren't we? No, we're actually we're hitting the power limit. And so it's downclocking a bit. But this will actually probably beat the stock Intel settings. Unless we're hitting CEP like crazy, which we might. Though, again, the BIOS did say that auto is actually disabled CEP, so... Oh no, it's mashing CEP. Yeah, it is. It is absolutely slamming into CEP. Because, like, my general approach to, like, overclocking both 12th gen and 13th, 14th gen has been, like, relatively high set voltages in fixed mode, but with a lot of E-droop. And I personally would never go over 1.45 set voltage. So I'm kind of wondering if, like, if you have 1.45 with, like, low or medium LLC, would you end up at, like, similar voltages to what Intel is defaulting to, like, what Intel gets in that 8-thread load scenario? This might crash. The CPU is really bad. I don't know what voltage it needs for Cinebench at 5.5 all-core. Did I not disable the power limits? Why aren't we... Am I blind, or is that 5.3 gigahertz? No, that is 5.3. Why is it at 5.3? Why is it downclocking so much? Oh, this runs at 5.5. Oh, there's going to be an AVX offset, isn't there? Wait, why? I have the power limits blown up. I have the current limit blown up. I disabled CEP. I disabled TVB. Is that like locked out now? Man, I don't want to. Do I even want to know what the instant 6 gigahertz plus does? Probably not. Okay, so I think now it should be overridden. Because, yeah, I figured you could just override it while having the Intel mode turned on, but apparently no, you have to disable it. I guess that makes sense. I want to see if, like, all core crashes. Not that Cinebench is a proper stress test, but, like, you know, just a rough idea. Oh, yeah, that's more like it. Yeah, because now the CPU actually runs at 5.5 gigahertz. Oh, no, not that. Where's my hardware info? Oh, that's actually a really old version. So now let's see. Well, the thing is, like, we're literally we sit idle at lower voltages than what like Intel was getting, right? Like, we can't, like, because of how fixed voltage with VDroop works. We literally cannot get a higher voltage than what we're really seeing right now. So yeah, so that's like 1.3. Now, admittedly, this is at lower frequencies. But I don't think 8 threads at 5.7, even on my CPU, should require 1.4 volts. That seems entirely unnecessary. And, like, again, you know, out of the box, CPUs do have a big fat, like, safety margin on their voltage settings. But if that safety margin is degrading the silicon, maybe you should, like, test the stuff better. Like, I don't know if 1.4 volts actually causes degradation, but I don't think I wouldn't want to, like, to me it seems really high. Like, if Intel sold the 14900K as a 5 gigahertz boost CPU, right? Like, out of the box it came with, like, very low frequencies, and I was manually overclocking it. this is as high as I'd be willing to go, and this is gonna be like, I don't think we're gonna be able to cool this. So if I was manually overclocking, I wouldn't even consider running this. If it like doesn't like it's not like, this isn't going to be Linpack stable. It's not going to be all kind of like stress test stable. It's going to be completely uncoolable in any of those. Cinebench might just barely scrape by if it doesn't instantly crash on all core load. I think for 8 threads, I think it'll be fine. Like, the whole idea with boost algorithms running, like, voltages way higher than what I'd be ever willing to run in a, like, static overclock scenario is that the boost algorithm, like, won't, like, technically you can run higher voltages at lower temperatures, but I don't think 80 degrees is a low temperature. So I don't know if I would count that as like particularly clever, right? If you compare that to AMD's boost algorithm, like AMD's boost algorithm, you sneeze next to the system and it'll lower the frequency, because it's so incredibly like, you know, like the fact that the CPU can hit high frequencies is more of like an advertising checkbox than it is an actual like performance priority for AMD's boost algorithm. So I think this is 8 thread right now, right? Yeah, this is 8 threads. And yeah, we're getting way less voltage than what Intel runs. Still lower power draw. Yeah, and about 1.33 at the die. And like 1 point, like we're getting like 50, like, well, okay, not 50, like 40 millivolts less than the Intel settings in this scenario. Now, I don't think these settings that I'm running right now will actually be able to run all core, because I think the all core voltage will be way too low, and it'll crash. But at the same time, if you use the Intel profile, the all-core frequency is like 5.1, right? It's like 5-ish gigahertz. It's way, way lower than 5.7. Um, yeah, like this is not enough voltage for 5.7. And in a static overclocking scenario, like at this point, I would just like give up on 5.7. Now, we do have the boost by active core count. So the thing is, I don't like boost by active core count manual overclocking because it's a nightmare to stress test. And if you think about it, right, 5.5 gigahertz and 6 gigahertz are literally like, that's not even a 10% difference between the two. So, like, having two cores that sometimes hit 6 gigahertz when under most circumstances your CPU might be at like 5.5, 5.6, 5.7 is like, it doesn't really do anything as far as I'm concerned. I think the same thing about AMD's like 5.7 gigahertz single core boost is like, and AMD's like is even less like you're even less likely to see that frequency on an AMD CPU than on an Intel CPU. But anyway, so now we're gonna switch this back to auto. We're gonna do like 57. And I think that should be stable. And then, you know what, sure, let's run 44 on the E-cores. I think that should be, like, I think we should have plenty of voltage for that. The thing is, this setup, I'm pretty sure actually drops to 5.6 in the 8 thread load. Which is, like, that's the stupid thing is, like, there's a difference between like, having 8 cores loaded and having 16 threads loaded. And also you can have you also have a difference of, like, 8 threads of Cinebench are not the same thing as 8 threads of Prime 95 small FFTs. Right? That's, like, probably the biggest issue with, like, the per core overclocking thing is, like, that does not reflect the load on the cores at all. Like, there's easily, like, a 200 megahertz gap between the frequency you can run for Prime 95 small FFTs and the frequency that you can run for Cinebench. Right? So that then you end up in this really awkward, like, you end up in that awkward scenario of, like, well, how much stability do you actually want? You want it Prime 95 stable? Because if you want it Prime 95 stable, you're going to have to back off the frequencies quite a lot. Anyway, this, I think, might not crash anymore. I mean, I guess I could have dropped it to 5.5 all-core. Yeah, so now, like, the all-core load is 5644, which is way higher than the Intel default profile. But also, like, yeah, well, this is actually the 8 thread load, so we're not even seeing, yeah, so this drops to 5.6 already, which is dumb. Because this should be able to run at 5.7, and it's just the 5.7 at, with the E-cores also loaded. Because the thing that happens when you load up the E-cores is they pull power, and so since we're on, like, a fixed voltage with VDroop, the more current the CPU pulls, the lower the voltage gets. And the E-cores and the P-cores share the power delivery. So if the E-cores drag the voltage down by pulling a bunch of current, yeah, the P-cores don't have enough voltage to run 5.7 gigahertz anymore. Anyway, let's see if it crashes in 32 thread load. Yeah, so now it's running 5644. All cores loaded. Again, Cinebench is not a real stress test, and we're at, like, 1.3 volts right now. And yeah, like, highest score so far. But like, the problem with this, like, this, I wouldn't consider this, like, a stable overclock because Cinebench is not a stress test. I imagine. Do I have Whitecruncher on here somewhere? I should have Whitecruncher. Is there a batch file that's FFT memcrunch? Yeah, so that'll just run VST. Mind you, we're at, like, freaking JDEC memory settings right now, so if this locks up, like... Okay, I think the JDEC memory is actually preventing this from crashing. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, it's 5.6. So it's not, like, downclocking for AVX. Okay. Do I have Prime 95? I have Linpack Extreme. I guess we could hit it with that. Actually, Linpack's also super... no, DDR5 should be... Even, like, JDEC DDR5 should be like, enough memory bandwidth to crash this. I hope. Oh, wait, no. This version of Linpack doesn't work with E-cores. Man, I love E-cores. So yeah, I really do need Prime 95. Oh, wait, I found it. There we go. Small FFTs. This is running? What? Oh, it's downclocking really hard. Because it's thermal throttling, isn't it? Yep, it's thermal throttling. Yep, oh well. The voltages is nice and low. Yeah, we're pulling like 300 watts right now. AIO getting a workout. Yeah, we're at like 1.23 volts. So. Oh, right, that doesn't close Prime 95. I hate that. That is so dumb that, like, you press the X and it doesn't close the like, exit. There we go. So maybe I won't be able to get this to crash. Oh, wait, I think this is high memory. Yeah, this is high memory capacity FFT. I would need, like, low... I don't think that's on this OS. Oh, well. So... Yeah, I am not a fan of the... Like, the new microcode does, at least for very light load, it lowers the voltage. It does do that. So that's good. But for partial load, I'm not sure if it does enough. And I'm not even sure that the very light load voltage reduction is big enough. Like, I think it might have to be bigger. Like, instead of... Because, like, the F5 BIOS was 1.5 volts. This new BIOS with the, like, F7E with the new 125 microcode, that's 1.45 volts. But I think the newest BIOS should actually be more like... I think it should be, like, 1.4 max. And then like 1.35 for that 8-thread load. Like, I would basically take off another 50 millivolts across the board. But the issue is like the thing is, you can't just keep taking away voltage without also lowering the frequency, because if you just keep taking away voltage, eventually it's going to crash because the voltage is too low, right? So I guess maybe that's what Intel is like running validations on right now for that mid-August release, is like they're trying to get the voltages down as much as possible without like blue screening a bunch of systems out there. Or like recreating the issue that like the F5 BIOS, right? Because the F5 BIOS on stock settings, like, it ran more voltage in low load than this newest BIOS does, but it was also not stable in all-core Cinebench 15. Right? So that BIOS was running more voltage and also and it wasn't stable. Because in certain scenarios it was actually running too little voltage. So Intel really has this awkward situation of like, the voltages are too high, but we can't just lower them by like 100 millivolts across the board, because that might cause a bunch of CPUs to like stop working completely, right? Even if they're not degraded, like, they're just not able to run the frequencies we ship them at if we lower the voltage by 100 millivolts. So I wonder if that's what they're doing, is like trying to come up with some way to like lower everybody's voltages in the field, ideally without lowering everybody's frequencies by, say, 100 megahertz. And honestly, 100 megahertz frequency drop would easily probably get everybody 50 millivolts. Because the thing with the CPUs, when they're pushed so hard right out of the box, is the voltage frequency relationship is far from, like, especially towards the end of the voltage frequency graph, it's not very linear. So you need, like, let's say at, let's take Sandy Bridge, just because I have, like, good memories of Sandy Bridge, you know, when Intel still made good CPUs instead of broken CPUs. And they shipped them at like 3 gigahertz, which might be part of why they weren't broken. But anyway, so Sandy Bridge, you might have a chip that does, say, 4.5 gigahertz at 1.35 volts, right? And that chip will do, like, say, 4.6 at, say, 1.38, and it'll do 4.7 at, like, 1.42. I'm actually scaling that too quickly, I think. So like for so from 4.5 to 4.6, you might need like 30 millivolts extra. And then from 4.6 to 4.7, you might need like 40 millivolts extra. And from 4.7 to 4.8, you might need another 50 millivolts, right? So each step, it doesn't go up, oh, you need 30 millivolts more for each step. You need like, first you need 30 millivolts, then you need 40 millivolts, then 50, then 60, 100, right? And that's how, like, I had a 3960X, which, like to run, like I ran it very briefly at 5.3 gigahertz at like 1.7 volts. But for 5 gigahertz, it only needed like 1.5 ish, right? So there's this like huge jump when you get to the end of the frequency, like voltage frequency curve. Um, and so if Intel wanted to shave off another 50 millivolts off of everybody's like stock voltages, they could also just lower the frequency by 100 megahertz, and that would probably be completely safe in terms of stability. It's just that people would get very upset about losing 100 megahertz. Probably. Um, so yeah, but at a minimum, the like yeah, like the new microcode is lowering the voltage. At least for light load, it's lowering it by at least 50 millivolts. Um, but I don't think that's enough because the thing is, there's i7s which run significantly lower voltages than i9s, and those are also degrading. So I don't think like, oh, we're gonna bring the i9s from way higher voltages than i7s, which were also some of them were also degrading, down to like still above i7s, right? Like we went from like 1.5 to 1.45, which is like still more than an i7 CPU. Than like a bad i7 CPU. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna pull up the Igor's lab article on this because like, at this point, this video is like uh completely off the deep end. So like, what does it matter if it gets worse? There. So, right? Because if you look at the i7 voltages, right? A lot of i7s right around that 1.43 area, 1.4 volt area, and the really bad ones are like 1.43 for the vid table. But your i9s, like, they start at 1.4. Like, if you have an i9 that runs at 1.4 volts, you have like some of the best silicon that Intel has shipped, right? And if you have an average i9, you're somewhere around like 1.47. So you're already like 50 millivolts above bad i7s. And then my CPU is all the way up on this end. I have a 1.498. Right? And if you look at i5s, i5s have like the biggest spread. Like really, really bad i5s are up at like 1.4-ish almost. And really, really good ones are down at 1.2. So that's why I think there is like, because there are some reports of like i5s having degradation, and I think that's why is like if you get a really, really bad i5, then like yeah, I guess. I guess that would not be ideal for the longevity of the CPU. And then like you see some i7s failing because yeah, the i7s get pretty spicy. And then you get, and then the i9s are the ones that like seem to be just dropping dead all over the place because well, look at the voltages that they're shipping at. And I honestly kind of think that like Intel would basically have to bring the voltage tables in line with the i5s instead of like lowering the i9s and i7s to by 50 millivolts more like 100. Hopefully I'm wrong about that and like they won't have to lower the voltage that much, because if they do, then like I don't see how they can do that without lowering the frequency. Um but yeah, I'm not sure, right? Like I don't like you can't like this is like the thing is as you progressively lower the voltage, it's going to take longer and longer for the CPU to degrade, right? So it's like so if at 1.5 volts the CPU takes in a typical user scenario, right? Because I know I made a video about those Minecraft servers where they were burning through CPUs in like a like you'd have a bunch of chips fail after like 2 months. So those were killing the CPUs really, really fast. But for most people, it takes like half a year before they get noticeable degradation, right? Like 3 to 6 months. So it takes forever. And it's like, okay, so if we lower the voltage by 50 millivolts, and now it takes a year before you get that level of degradation or something. Or it might take a year and a half, right? And it's like, so after a year and a half, it's like, well, you only got 6 months left in your warranty. So if you lower the volt, like, so, and like the thing is the degradation effect itself is nonlinear. But I do wonder if like we might not end up in a scenario where like Intel just lowers the voltage just enough that it outlasts the warranty period, and then it's like, well, cool. Cause yeah, l- like like the voltage right now is like way too like the voltage is up until now, I guess, because like this new microcode is lowering the voltage. But I wonder what they're gonna do about the KS chips, because like a lot of like there are 14900 KS chips out there with like a vid of 1.49. I mean 1.549. Like those things are at 1.55 volts out of the box. So it's like, oh, we're gonna shave 50 millivolts off of those to bring them in line with the very worst regular K chips. How's that gonna help? Um, right? So, yeah. I do wonder about that. Like I hope they have a fix for this that doesn't involve nuking everybody's CPU performance. I mean, they wouldn't even have to nuke it. Like, you would actually just have to shave off a couple percentage points because, like, the chips are pushed to the absolute limit out of the box. So if you lower the frequency a little bit, the voltage comes down a lot, right? Like, you don't. So, yeah, like. So, like, they wouldn't have to nuke performance. But, like, I think at this point, a lot of people would be very, very upset with any amount of performance drop. Um, and like rightly so, because like you're buying a like a $600 CPU, and then it's like, oh, it's not reliable. Oh, we need to make it slower. Oh, like, and also like, how do you like the thing that I don't get is like, how do you ship these, and then like after like a year go like, oh wait, we have this degradation problem. We need to lower the voltages by like 50 millivolts or something like that. Is like, did you not like do any reliability testing? Like, how does this happen? Like, did you never check a retail motherboard? Like, what? Not even like, and I'm not even talking about like retail gaming motherboards, like the super micro boards, right? In those blade servers, like, like, did just nobody checked anything? Um, so yeah. Anyway, at a minimum, I can confirm that the newest microcode lowers voltages in some scenarios. Um, and actually, I wonder if like different CPUs see different amounts of voltage reduction. Because like maybe if you have a chip that has like a pretty low initial vid, it might not lower the voltage as much. I don't know. Um, like I don't have other CPUs to test with, so I can't check that anyway. Um, But yeah, like this whole like the thing is this whole situation just makes me like I'm super annoyed about this because it's like I can't actually really tell you like, oh, do X to be safe, because like I don't know, right? Like I don't like how am I supposed to know? Intel apparently didn't know for like 2 years. So like what am I supposed to know about this? Um like they're supposed to have reliability data on these CPUs. They should have very detailed characterizations of how these chips age. Um Apparently they don't. Or they just never measured what the chips run at in the real world. Or they're like grossly like underestimated how people use their CPUs or something. I do not like understand how they got into this situation. Like, you know, because like you wouldn't like it, as far as I'm concerned, like if you're shipping a chip with a boost algorithm, that boost algorithm should be set up in such a way that whatever frequency and voltage the boost algorithm ever applies should be sustainable for the duration of the warranty at a bare minimum, right? So if there's a 6 gigahertz boost setting on your CPU, whatever like conditions the 6 gigahertz boost requires to be met, be that like temperature, current draw, power consumption, whatever, right? Um, those conditions are safe for at least the duration of the warranty, right? Like the CPU should not degrade to the point of being unstable before the warranty expires if it's running in that, like, if even if it was running that 6 gigahertz boost all day, every day, right? Because if you do anything less than that, where it's like, oh, well, we expect the users to only run the 6 gigahertz boost 10% of the time, and it's like, oh, you botched your estimate on how often that boost state is used, and actually most people use that boost state 30% of the time, now you have a bunch of dead chips, right? So that to me is like just not a reasonable way of like designing a chip where it's like, oh yeah, you can only use this operating configuration is only safe for like a fraction of the lifespan of the CPU. Like that's not a good way to do this. Because you don't know how the chip is going to get used. And so if somebody doesn't use it exactly the way you envisioned them using it, they're going to kill it really, really quick. And if it turns out that you like botched your estimates for the vast majority of your end users, then like everybody's going to be killing chips really, really quick. Though in this case, it just looks like they just set the voltages too damn high. And like, and I still don't get how they never noticed. Like, do they actually like what motherboard does Intel use for testing the CPUs? Right? Like I guess they have like their own internal Intel special motherboard, and then it's like everybody else is just like, so what settings does that run? How did Intel never notice that these chips seem to degrade incredibly fast? Also, do Intel I'm assuming Intel employees actually use Intel CPUs for like, like some of them probably play games. They probably have i9s. What motherboards do they use? Um yeah. So anyway, this video has gotten completely out of control. But I didn't really like my initial expectations for how this was gonna go is I was gonna update to the latest BIOS and the voltage was gonna be exactly the same, and I was gonna go like, well, this is not gonna make a difference. But it turns out that even though there's no obvious visible difference, like the AC load line is actually higher, the power limits are like, okay, the power limits are 253, CEP is turned on, like, yeah, it actually runs less voltage. So that's pretty cool. I don't think it's necessarily enough of a voltage reduction to actually get rid of the degradation, but at the minimum, it should delay it by some amount. Maybe it does actually completely prevent the degradation, but like, I don't know. Like, we have reports of i7s degrading. I kind of suspect that if the i7s are degrading, then lowering the voltages on the i9s by 50 millivolts is probably not going to be enough. You know, so yeah. Anyway, that'll be it. So hopefully you found this somewhat interesting. I don't have to ask that question, do I? Because you're still here after 2 hours. So if you didn't find it interesting, why are you still here? Um, but yeah, and maybe even useful. This video might be. Um, but yeah, so thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. There's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, hoodies, posters, you know, the usual YouTuber merch, and I've also got a Bandcamp. So yeah, if you'd check those links out, that would be much appreciated. And that's it for the video, so thanks for watching, and goodbye.